Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this cause shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you. State you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. Good morning, Ms. Najera.
Good morning.
Would you kindly introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Janie Najera, and I am the widow of Ramon Najera Jr.
Yes, ma'am. Now, I see that you are, or full name is Juanita. Do
Yes.
people call you Janie?
Yeah, they do.
Do you prefer that I call you Ms.
You can call
Najera,
me-
Juanita?
You can call me Janie.
Fair enough. Thank you, Janie.
Yeah.
Okay, so you told us that you are the wife of the victim in this case,
Yes.
Ramon Najera. Can you kind of tell us, Ms. Najera, Janie, how did you and Mr. Najera meet?
We met in 1974, and we met at a dance. He was there, and we got to dance together. And he told me, "I've been looking for somebody like you that can dance like you." And from that day on, we dated, and we went to a lot of happy occasions, you know. And he just loved dancing, and I loved dancing too.
So that's something that you loved to do together?
Yes, we did.
Now you mentioned that it was in the 70s when you first met. When did you and Mr. Najera get married?
When did what?
When were you married?
When we married?
Yes, ma'am.
We got married in 1977.
And were you married throughout that whole time period up until 2020?
Yes, until he passed away.
So that's something on like 40 odd years?
Yeah, 45 at the time of his death.
45 years you were married to
Yeah.
Mr. Najera.
Yeah.
So he was the man that liked dancing.
Mm-hmm.
What else can you tell us about him?
He was a very caring person. He touched the hearts of so many people. He was a loving father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. He left a little bit of memories even to the great-grandchildren. Even to at the time, my little great-granddaughter was only two years old. And up to this day, she can go in the living room and look at his picture, and she will burst out crying and asking her mom that she wants her Grandpa Raymond back, to tell him to come back. And she gets very emotional.
Yes, ma'am. What did Mr. Najera do for a living?
He served in the Air Force. He joined right out of high school. He joined the buddy system. His best friend was Gilbert Flores, and they joined together. He graduated from Tech High School, and he belonged to the class of 1960, but he would hang around with the class of 1959. So he would always go to the class reunions, and he loved the military life. You know, it showed him so much. He felt like everybody should join the military so they can show you how to be a good person, you know.
Approximately how many years, Ms. Najera, did Mr. Najera serve in the United States Air Force?
He served 21 years.
And then he retired out of that?
He retired.
Honorably discharged?
Yes, 21
Yes,
years.
After Mr. Najera retired, Janie, did he seek any other employment?
He did. He went to work for civil service. And he went to work for civil service, and he worked until 2005 in civil service. The last station was Utah, Hill Air Force Base.
Did you and him live in Utah for a time?
Yes, we went to Utah because they closed Kelly, and he said he wanted to continue his career until retirement. So he said, we're going to go to Oklahoma. And when we get to Oklahoma, we can travel and it's closer so we can come back and see the kids. And then a big tornado hit the base in Oklahoma. And he said, I'm taking my name off the base. I'm not going to Oklahoma. We're going to go to Utah. And that was the best choice,
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so you stayed in Utah for a time, I guess moved around a little bit, right?
Yes.
Because of military wife,
Yeah.
military family, right?
Yeah.
Not unusual. When did you guys move back to San Antonio?
We got to Utah in 2000 and we stayed until 2005. We were supposed to go for a year, but it was so beautiful. He said, we're going to stay here 5 years. Yeah.
So you said you left Utah in 2005 or got to Utah in 2005?
We left Utah 2005
Yes, ma'am. And then came back
to San Antonio.
Did you and Mr. Najera reside in San Antonio from 2005 all the way until his
death? Yeah.
Okay. When did Mr. Najera perform while he was here in San Antonio?
Okay, after he retired from civil service, he was a very active person. So he said he was going to go ahead and take a little part-time job on the weekends doing security. And his mom, she's 100 years old, and she's over there. And she told him, if I could go to work at 80 years old, son, you can continue working. So he decided to go to work and after retirement and keep working till the age of 81.
Now, Janie, I saw you gesturing sort of towards behind me, toward the audience. You mentioned Mr. Najera's mother.
Yeah,
100 years old.
She's 100 years old.
And is she present here in the courtroom today?
Yes, she is.
What is her name?
Her name is Janie Najera.
So, Miss Najera, the elder, if you will, essentially outlived her son.
She did. She outlived her son. He always thought he was going to have at least 20 more years. He kept on saying, Mom's up in age. My grandma lived to be 108. He said, maybe I can live to be 100. And he found out he was diabetic when we were in Utah. And I told him, you need to focus and keep yourself healthy, It's not because you're diabetic, you can do it. And I worked in nutrition for 34 years. And I told him, I'm going to help you. I'm not going to let you, go bad, your diabetes. And even after he had to start dialysis, but he started dialysis way after he retired. And he went to the clinic and he was very emotional the first time he had to do dialysis.
And why is that, Jane?
What's that?
Why was he emotional?
Because it was going to change his life, the life that we had traveling. And he said, our lives are going to change a lot. We're not going to be able to travel like we used to. But I know that deep inside of him, he lived his life for me. He loved me, and I loved him very much. But right after he started dialysis, about a year after, he found out that the people from dialysis told him, hey, Mr. Najera, you don't have to stop traveling. You can still continue traveling. All you have to do is tell us, where do you want to go? We'll call that place and we'll help you arrange your dialysis. And he was so happy. He came home and he said, hey, Rick from dialysis told me we can still travel, Janie. So he made arrangements to go to Virginia. And he says, we're going to Virginia. We're going to go visit a friend. And we were over there for more than a week. And during that week, he got dialysis twice.
So he was very excited about that news.
Yes,
Still.
yeah, it was good news for him, you know.
Do you know, Janie, if as part of his treatment for dialysis, if he had one of those, sometimes patients get those stents, right?
Yes,
Did he have one of those?
yes, he did.
And what arm was it on?
It was on his left arm.
Okay. Now, you mentioned, Janie, that he was still working as a security guard.
Oh, yeah, he worked
Part-time.
security, yeah.
Did he have to wear a uniform as a part of that employment?
Yeah, he wore his uniform and he was always very proud, you know, to represent whatever company he worked for. And he was very particular about his clothes. He wanted his pants to fit perfect. He didn't want them hanging over. He wanted to look good, you know. And he had a friend that he worked with in one of the places, and that friend, he used to wear the company shirt, and then he would wear whatever pants, and then he would wear boots, and my husband would tell him, "Why are you dressed like that? You know, you look like you're gonna go fight the militia. You know, you don't dress like that for your work. You know, you have to be complete."
A very formal man.
Yeah, he was
Maybe
very formal.
From the
yeah.
military training, perhaps?
From the military training, yeah.
Okay, Ms. Najera. Unfortunately now, I have to kind of direct your attention to the events that unfolded on
Yes.
February 24th
Yeah.
of 2023. Can you sort of walk us through how you came to be, why you and Mr. Najera were on Depla Street? What led up to that?
Yeah. My husband had been working for a company called Securitas for a long time, for many years. And then one of his friends changed to a new company, and he told my husband, "Hey, come work over here at Universal L.I. Barton." He said, "You really would like it with this company?" And he went and had an interview, and they hired him. And they gave him a bunch of new uniforms, and he was excited. He said, I need my pants to be altered." And the morning of the 24th, we had a beautiful morning. We had breakfast together. He was happy. He was happy, and he said, "Go ahead and you change, Janie, like quick, you know? Don't take a long time, you know, because we're going to go see the seamstress and call her, you know, and let her know we're going." And I called, but Angie didn't answer. And
So Ms. Najera, let's break that down.
Okay.
So he had a bunch of new uniforms as a result of his employment, and he was excited to go see a seamstress.
yes,
Why did you need to go see the seamstress?
because he had to have his pants altered, you know, his new uniform pants.
Yes, ma'am. So he needed some alterations.
He would.
Now, he mentioned that he wanted you to call ahead and try to get a hold of the seamstress.
Yeah,
Who was that person?
the
The seamstress.
seamstress, Angie Ramirez.
Angie Ramirez.
Yeah,
And did Angie Ramirez live on Depla Street?
she did. She lived on Tepla.
And that's the connection that you had essentially.
Yes, yeah. She was a wonderful seamstress. She was.
So you and Mr. Najera did not live on Depla?
No, we did not. We
You're not
lived.
neighbors of anyone on
No.
Depla?
Well, I have family that lives like on Darby, which is the next street.
Yes, ma'am.
My niece Laura, she lives on Darby.
So then you do have some family that lives in the
Yeah.
neighborhood, but you personally did not?
No, I don't live there.
That's right. So I guess that day, what brought you to Depla was you were seeking out that seamstress, Miss Angie, for those alterations.
Yes.
Before you guys left your house to head over to Depla, were you able to reach Miss Angie to let her know you were coming?
No, I couldn't get her on the phone, but Angie's phone, she was always having problems with the phone. And I told Raymond, I said, she didn't answer. And Raymond said, well, it's okay, because you know her phone's always messed up. So let's just go over there. And we went ahead and took off. And when we got there, we parked not right next to the curve, but a little bit away from the curve.
Yes, ma'am. So
And he,
so let's
okay,
sort of break that down. You said you guys drove there.
yeah.
Do you remember what vehicle you guys were driving in?
Our Camry, our 2022 Camry.
Okay, so a
It's a-
2022 Toyota Camry.
Camry, yeah. And
Do
it's
you remember the color of that vehicle?
yeah, it's sort of like a maroonish or reddish, like an apple reddish or something like that.
Okay, and who was driving the car?
My husband,
Okay. Now, you say you parked a few feet away from the curb.
yeah,
Do you know in front of whose house you parked?
Angie's,
So right in front of Miss Angie's house?
yeah. A little bit away from the driveway,
Okay,
yeah,
so you were presumably in the passenger seat?
yeah.
Okay,
I
was
was
there
in the
anyone else in
passenger.
the vehicle?
No, it was just him and
So
myself.
just Mr. Ramon Najera and yourself in the red Toyota Camry?
Yes,
Okay. When you arrived and the vehicle was parked in front of Miss Angie's house, what did you do next?
he asked me, he said, go ahead and get down, and if Angie's not there, ask him if you can leave the clothes there, and you can leave a sample of the length. And I didn't take the clothes with me, but I went through the driveway, and I went to the door and I knocked. And her grandson entered the door,
Angie's grandson.
Angie's grandson.
Okay.
And I told him that, was Angie there? And he said, no, she's not here. I said, well, I have some clothes. Can I drop it off and she can work on it? And he said, yeah, go ahead and get the clothes and I'll give it to her.
Was it unusual for you to leave clothes in this fashion for Miss Angie to work on?
No, because there was other occasions that she wasn't home and we would just leave the clothes there.
How long was Miss Angie a seamstress for you guys?
God, for many years. We left Utah in 2005, and I think like 2007 and 2008, somewhere around there, we started going to her.
Had you been to Debla on many occasions
Oh yeah, many occasions.
to give work for Miss Angie?
Yeah.
The times that you had previously been on Debla Street, do you remember there being any dogs or anything along those lines in the property next door?
Well, for a long time, there was a family, their names were Medina. They lived there for many, many years. And I don't know when the Morenos moved in there, but before that, there was no dogs. There was no dogs out there.
Okay, so on the occasions you had been there previously, you didn't have any
I didn't
reason
see
to
any dogs.
or-
But that day that I went, the dogs were on the Morenos' property.
Yes, ma'am, so let's talk about that.
Yeah. And I had just left the front door and I could hear them barking, and they were barking very vicious. They would go from one side of the fence to the other, and they were just like barking terrible. I mean, when I turn around to look at them and barking like that, I didn't even think that they would jump over, So
So at that time, were they inside the fence?
they were inside their yard. So when I left the front door, I walked to the driveway, and by the time I got to the gate, I turned, and the black dog, he was already climbing the fence with his paws. He climbed so fast that when I turned around, he was already going to the very top of the fence. So I kind of hurried to get to my car to open the door, but my husband was inside the car, but I think he was on the phone, because he used to like breaking news and all that. And he was busy, I guess, with the phone. And I got to the door as soon as I could, and I was gonna grab the door to get in the car, and the dog just came at me and started grabbing me biting my knee in different places. And I started screaming, and I was holding on to the door, and I was screaming, and I was like, Raymond, I said, the dog, and my husband heard me, and he panicked, and he just got out of his side, and he came over to my side, and with his right hand, he told the dog, leave her alone, and when he hit him in the head, the dog just let go of my knee, and he grabbed his wrist, and he knocked him to the ground. So the dog like pushed me, and I fell down like back, and I was between the car and the curb, and I was facing up, and my husband was against the fence, Angie's fence, and the dog was just like pulling on his wrist. He just wouldn't stop. And Raymond was screaming, and he kept on saying, Janie, I can't take him off of him. I can't take the dog off of me, Janie. I can't. And the dog kept on pulling on his wrist. And we were screaming. I was screaming, somebody please help us. Somebody please help us. I mean, nobody would come out. And then finally, Angie's grandson came out. He came out with a rake. And he hit the dog, like, leave him alone. And he hit him, so the dog turned on him. And he knocked him down right in front of his door. And he was on him, and he was young. He pushed the dog away, and he ran inside.
Do you know if Angie's grandson, when he came out and struck the dog with a rake, do you know if the dog was able to bite Angie's grandson?
Yeah, because he knocked him down to the ground, he was able to bite him.
So, you described for us, Mrs. Najera, that you saw the black dog climb over the fence.
Oh yeah, he climbed like a ladder, like this, like that.
And then you tried to get inside the car.
Yeah.
And then you cried for help, and Mr. Najera came right out to try to
help me, and the dog just knocked him down.
And at that point, you had already been bitten on your leg.
Yeah, I was on the ground facing up, and I was able to see him. And during that time, the dog grabbed my husband, and he started pulling him to the corner of the fence. And when I saw my husband, he looked like lifeless, I guess he was trying not to put pressure, not to pull away from the dog. And the dog would pull him forward, and he was dragging him. At that time, Raymond was not saying anything. The dog was just dragging him. And when the dog dragged him, then the white dog came out of the fence, and
Let me pause really quickly.
Okay.
Janie. You said that the black dog broke off from your husband for a moment when he went after Angie's grandson with the rake.
Yes.
Did the black dog or the darker colored dog eventually go back to attacking Mr. Najera?
He did.
And at some point, you were just mentioning just now that you saw a white dog as well.
Yeah, the white dog got out of the yard.
Were you able to see how the white dog got out of the yard?
I couldn't see that far. I couldn't see, but the white dog, after my husband was dragged away from me, I could still see him, but he was a little further down. The white dog came over to where I was. I saw the white dog walking to where I was, and I went like, this dog is gonna finish me up. And she came over to where I was lying down, and I kept on saying, she's gonna probably attack me on my face or on my neck. And I started praying. I was like, Jesus, cover me with your holy blood, Jesus. this dog's gonna attack me. She stood next to me and I could see her on the corner of my eyes. And the dog just kept on looking at me and looking at me. And it was just like a miracle. She walked away. The dog walked away and went and attacked my husband. That's the one that pulled a line from him.
And that's why I was asking you, Janie, earlier about whether or not he had a line as a
He
result
did.
of that.
He had a dialysis line.
So you witnessed the white dog attack your husband and rip that away from him.
No, I didn't. But, the dog moved him more, But, that's the dog that pulled his line out.
You mentioned that you were crying out for help, Janie. Did help eventually arrive?
They did. The fire department. I was, I had my hands bloody because the dog attacked my hands. And when the dog put his paws on me, when he jumped on me, he ripped tissue from my stomach. And I was bleeding. I was bleeding all over, from my knee, my hands. And I felt somebody put their hands on me, and they told me, "We're here to help you. We're from the fire department, and we're here to help you. We're going to try to put you on the stretcher." And I kept on telling him, "You need to help my husband." I told him, "My husband needs help." And he said, "We're going to help you, ma'am. We're going to get you in the stretcher and put you in the ambulance, and we're going to get to your husband."
Janie, at some point did the fire department manage to get you to the ambulance?
They did. They did.
Do you remember if EMS personnel were there as well? Paramedics?
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah.
Do you remember the EMS treating you, helping you out?
Yeah, they put me in the stretcher and they started cutting all my clothes off because they needed to see all the areas that were affected. And they told me they were helping my husband. They were helping my husband.
Were you able to learn at that time where your husband was being transported, Mr. Najera?
Yeah, they told me, "We're going to take you to University Hospital, and they're going to take your husband in a different ambulance to University Hospital."
Is that where you were transported?
Yes.
And do you remember, Janie, if while you were at the hospital, someone from San Antonio Police Department came and took photographs of you?
I don't remember. I was really out of it.
Fair enough. But you did tell us you were bitten on your leg?
On my knee, all over my right knee, the upper part of my leg, not just the knee, it went all the way up to the upper part.
That's right. What about on your hands and arms? Do you
And
remember any?
my
injuries?
hands, he bit me right here and on the side, both hands.
Now, Janie, when you were walking away from the door of Angie's house, did you show any sign of aggression or hostility towards those dogs?
No, I didn't. I just heard him barking, and I didn't really expect that the dogs were going to jump, that the dog was going to jump over the fence. That was not even in my mind. I didn't even think they were going to attack.
Now, Janie, this is going to be a tough question to ask, but I have to ask it. Is that the last time that you saw Ramon Najera alive?
Yeah, that was the last time. When he was screaming for help. He was screaming for help.
When were you notified, or how did you find out that he had passed away?
They were treating me in the emergency room, and they told me that they were going to start me with rabies shots, and they said we have to inject you with rabies shots. All the bites have to be injected.
That's a very painful process, isn't it?
Yes, he said, all the bites in your hands, wherever you got bitten, you have to have rabies shots. So they gave me a bunch of rabies shots, and then they had this orthopedic doctor. He came in, and he told me that that they have to find out if the bites went all the way to the bone, and now we have to inject you with water, and he says it's going to be quite a bit. We have to get your knee full of water. I said, where's the water going to come out? And he said, from your wounds. If the bite went all the way to the bone, the water will come out through the wounds. And he put the water in there, and it was the most painful thing, because it stayed in there for a while, and my knee got huge. And then they had to take the water out with a syringe and take all that water out.
So very painful experience.
Very
as well.
painful, very painful.
Mrs. Najera, Janie, how did the events that you witnessed that day, essentially the death of your husband of 40 years, as well as what happened to you, affect you? Has it affected your life?
It has affected me a lot. It was this tragedy that it stayed in me up to this day. I cry in the mornings. And I grab my pillow. And I said to myself, how could this happen to us, How could this horrible thing happen to somebody that was such a good person? And then there's times when I'm just like, during the day, a quiet time, that it crosses my mind. And sometimes I feel like, what could I have done for him? I was so helpless. Why didn't I try to get up? Why didn't I try to help him? I could have told him, get your other hand and get his eyes and pull him out or something, I kept on thinking of things that he could have done to get out of that situation.
So, Janie, it sounds a little bit like you might experience what's known as survivor's guilt.
It is survivor's guilt. It is. Every day I go through that.
Now, Janie, I want to leave you with this final thought, I suppose, from this direct examination. Were you able to provide some photographs to the DA's office that show Mr. Najera as he was in life, and you've seen these before?
Yes, there were pictures that were sent to, because they had come out on TV, so they had pictures of him before.
May I approach the witness, Ron?
Yes.
Ms. Najera, Janie, I want to show you what's been marked for identification purposes. It's dates 61 through 64.
Okay.
Would you do me the kindness of taking a look at these photographs and tell me if these are the same photographs that you provided to us depicting
Yes.
Mr. Najera?
Yeah, yes, they are. Yeah. See how he was always so happy with the grandkids?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was his mom's, she was 90 years old at this birthday party.
Same woman you described for us earlier?
Genevieve,
That's
dancing with him.
Do these photographs fairly and accurately depict what they show?
Yes, they did.
Your Honor, the state would offer states 61 through 64 into evidence, tendering to opposing counsel for inspection.
We have no objections, Your Honor. No objections.
Dates 61 through 64?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good.
And permission to publish that.
Yes.
Janie, let me show you stage 61. Can you tell us what we're looking at on stage 61?
I was taken at our home. We were going to go, his brother was getting married, and we were going to be the witness. And it was a February wedding, so everybody was dressed in red.
What about stage 62?
He was working at the VA hospital. He would work at the gate so that when there was somebody coming in, you know, he would check their ID.
That's right. And is this as his part-time security job?
Yeah,
Same
one of the jobs that he had, because he moved with several companies, but he was always security.
Yes, ma'am. And this is the sort of uniform that you described for us.
Yeah.
The kind of pants that he would have taken
Yes.
to attend you. What about stage 63?
This was the 4th of July parade at Leon Valley, and he was the one that would move everybody. He was like, he would tell the kids, "We're going to the 4th of July parade. You guys get ready," you know. And he would always take the kids to different events.
And then finally, stage 64, Janie, you told us that Mr. Najera loved to dance.
Yeah, he did.
What are we seeing on stage 64?
He's dancing with his mom. He always had to dance with his mom, the first dance with his mom, since he was the oldest.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Janie. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Janie, if I may call you Janie.
Yeah,
my name is
that's
Jorge
fine.
Aristotelides.
That's fine.
I represent Mr. Christian Moreno.
Mhm.
I'm going to inconvenience you a bit and ask you to step, if you could move your chair a little bit to your left,
To the left.
just so that I can be able to, we don't have this.
I am sorry.
Just move this to, at your convenience.
Okay, that's fine.
Let me begin, Janie, by expressing my sincerest, deepest condolences for the loss of your husband. I also want to express how sorry I am that you had to suffer, that you both had to suffer physical, mental, and emotional damage and harm. As you know, my client, a co-defendant in this case, Christian Moreno, has pled guilty in this case.
Yes.
He has accepted that he was negligent in the manner in which he kept his dogs. That has happened already. I would like to inquire a bit about very recent events involving a lawsuit that was filed on Friday. You're familiar with that lawsuit?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
You are represented by attorneys in a civil action,
Yes.
and the attorneys, with your consent and on your behalf, filed a lawsuit in federal court.
Yes, they did.
Now, it's my understanding that in this lawsuit you are alleging, with the assistance of your lawyers, that the city of San Antonio committed several different wrongs in the manner in which they dealt with these dogs.
They did.
In general terms, they failed to follow the proper procedures and other errors in ensuring that these dogs were not let out to the general public once they had custody of the dogs.
They should have never been returned. Never.
Is it fair to say that you find some fault in how the city of San Antonio and its agencies handled this, without getting too specific into the case?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that you have taken the position, Janie, that you would like to stop this from happening again.
Yeah, I made that statement that I wanted to stop. I don't want nobody to have to go through what I've gone through.
You hope that this lawsuit can help that happen.
That's what I'm looking for, you know?
If the city does what it's supposed to do, that these kinds of things don't happen again. You're hoping that that will
Yes.
come about as a result of this lawsuit.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
No questions, sir.
May she be excused?
Yes, Your Honor, on behalf.
Yes. I can get up.